Trying to figure out an intro for the Galaxy S8 and the Galaxy S8 Plus review has been tough. This is actually about the 15th take I've done. I wasn't quite sure what to say. I went back and forth on saying they have the weight of the company on its shoulders since the Note 7 fiasco. Is it more than just the marketing hype of the floating whale? But it boils down to this. The Galaxy S8, at least on paper and in your hand, looks to be an incredible phone. But how is it in real world usage? I didn't just test this phone in the office and take pictures of things I set up. I took this phone out in the real world and use it the way I use a phone. To the park with my kids, to Home Depot to buy stuff I needed for my new home. And throughout the course of this review, I'm gonna answer the question that hopefully you guys have on your mind. Is it worth your money? Should you buy it? And did I end up picking one up? I'm John Rettinger from Techno Buffalo. This is our review of the Galaxy S8 and the Galaxy S8 Plus. So let me get some of the details out of the way. I used this phone for 10 days, and I used both the S8 and the S8 Plus. As I go through the review, I'm gonna just say S8. The only differences between these two phones, aside from about $100 in price, is a little bigger screen size and an extra 500 milliamps on the battery. All phones nowadays kind of look the same. They're different variants of the rectangle. So I had a chance to first pick up the Galaxy S8. It struck me for its design, and that's a hard thing to do nowadays. The big story with the S8 is the screen. That's what Samsung's touting. The marketing machine came up with the term infinity display, and if you've been familiar with Samsung displays in the past, you probably know it's gonna look really good. And holy crap, does this display look incredible. And if it seems like I am overly excited about it, it's because I am legitimately overly excited about the display. This is what I use all the time, what you use all the time, how you interact with your phone. It's gotta be good. And man, does it look really good. Even mundane things like checking emails and sending SMS look awesome and are kind of fun to do because things look so crisp. That's even with the resolution scaled down to a little bit better than 1080 versus the QHD that it's capable of. Just for comparison purposes, it's got 36% more screen real estate than we saw on the Galaxy S7, and the Galaxy S8 Plus 6.3-inch screen size, almost the exact same footprint as the iPhone 7 Plus. So you are getting a ton of screen real estate. You're also getting some new design cues. You've got rounded corners. You've got now the edge display that's on the standard models, but it's a much less subtle edge display that we've got on the Galaxy S7 Edge. The AMOLED tech Samsung's had in the past is here. They've added mobile HDR, which looks nice. I didn't test that much mobile HDR. I did watch some Netflix content. It looks marginally better. But the story for me and how this screen is better than previous generations is in direct sunlight. That has been the Achilles heel of almost every smartphone. And I'm a dad. I take my phone out, take pictures of my kids at the parks, and I want to be able to see what the screen's gonna look like so I can get that perfect shot. And if you take the brightness and push it all the way up to 100%, you're gonna get all 1,000 nits of brightness coming out of this thing. Now, if you can deal with the phone getting super warm when you're pushing that much brightness, you can actually see the display in direct sunlight, which is really rare and also really refreshing to see. The other stuff you'd expect from the screen to look good certainly do. Games and video look absolutely beautiful. They do have the curved display here, so holding it can kind of be tricky. Oftentimes I was launching the edge panel, so they're trying to hold the sides. And if you're playing games, your right hand is certainly going to cover the single downward facing speaker. So you got to figure out how to hold your hand properly to get real audio to come out when playing games or even watching video. And while the screen is beautiful, perhaps the most surprising thing about the Galaxy S8 is Samsung finally laid the smackdown on carriers, and there's not a tramp stamp to be found on any of these. I'm looking at you, Verizon, and your check mark. You like to put over home buttons. And speaking of home buttons, you are not gonna find a physical one here on the Galaxy S8 because of all that screen real estate. Samsung made the home button in the screen itself. It's kind of like a force touch, 3D touch type thing. It's a touch panel all the way across the bottom. You can push it all the way in, get a bit of haptic feedback, and you can go home. It also means if you're playing a full screen game or watching a full screen video, you can sort of push hard on that screen and you'll be able to go home instead of just tapping. On-screen buttons come up and then hit the home button again. Perhaps the biggest downside of the phone is what removing that physical home button meant. That meant moving the fingerprint reader to the back of the phone. And oh, what a horrible choice for an otherwise really awesome phone. They put it, oddly, directly next to the camera sensor. And because you don't have any humps anymore on this camera sensor, when you're using the phone, looking at the screen, your finger doesn't really know where to go to hit that fingerprint reader, which means your camera sensor is going to have fingerprints all over it. I wish they would have put that somewhere else. And I kind of think Samsung knew that, because they gave you a ton of other ways to unlock your phone. Things like iris scanner for the Note 7 are here, and it works well, especially works well in dark environments. It works through sunglasses, but if you're in direct sunlight, it's not going to work so well for you. Samsung brought back something that used to be on old Android devices and tried to improve it with facial recognition. It works a little bit slow for my taste, and it can be fooled with some pictures. So it's not the most secure, but if you find another way to unlock your phone, it's there. So in typical reviews, after I talk about the screen, I'll jump into build. And it's kind of hard to do that with the S8 because the screen pretty much is the build. And I will say this, the phone feels really nice in the hand. Despite it being so thin, I don't feel like I'm going to drop it. And also for someone who's been using an iPhone 7 Plus in the past, I really appreciate how thin the phone is in my pants. I don't have phone bulge in my jeans. I didn't do any drop tests on it, but it is coated front and back with Gorilla Glass 5, so presumably you'll be able to survive those drops that inevitably will come. In my 10 days of testing, I haven't noticed any scratches, but man, is it a smudge machine. I've got the black version, and my fingerprints are everywhere. And it's not like I just ate like McDonald's fries and picked up the phone. I washed my hands like a normal, cleanly human being, and it still looks kind of gross in the back. So the aspect ratio has also changed with the screen getting bigger. In fact, the Galaxy S8 Plus fits into almost exactly the same footprint as an iPhone 7 Plus. So that means your experience with the phone is a little bit different. It's tall and thin, it's more Giselle and less like Jack Black. You're gonna be able to see a lot more content on the screen, but it also means you're gonna have to really stretch your thumb to get to the top to pull that notification tray. Now, Samsung lets you do things like use a fingerprint reader to swipe down to bring that down, but again, it's hard to reach the fingerprint reader with the Galaxy S8 Plus, and it's hard to find it on either phones. The virtual assistant world is pretty saturated right now, but Samsung thought there was room for one more, so enter Bixby. The only interaction you're going to have with Bixby probably at launch is when you accidentally press that dedicated Bixby button when you're trying to push volume down. And if you do push that, you're going to get Hello Bixby, which is going to look very similar to Google Now with information rating cards. Bixby Vision's also here. It kind of gives you an augmented reality information on books, wine, or products. I tried to test it out at Home Depot because I had to buy a shower head, and it did not work very well for me. But the big selling point of Bixby is that you can control anything you can with your finger, with your voice. That also is not working as of launch date, so Bixby's kind of half-baked right now. So Samsung software is a tough one to talk about. I've been, let's just say, less than kind in the past about Samsung's UI, and I think a lot of you guys have been less than kind, and as soon as you bought a Galaxy S, whatever, the first thing you did was download a launcher. Ever since, I think, the Galaxy S6, Samsung's been getting way better, and in fact, I'm gonna go on record as saying this, I love what Samsung did with their Android software. You can quote me on it and take it to the bank, use it for 5 or 6 days, and I think you're gonna agree with me. It took a lot of really nice things from stock Android and added a ton of other features on top of it that get out of their way. They're not layer on layer on layer of stuff you have to relearn how to use the operating system. They're nice improvements. You get the things you like from the Pixel launcher, like to swipe up to get to your app drawer. But you also get a lot of other improvements as well. You can swipe down, for example, to also get to your app drawer. You've got an improved notification tray. You've got a tweaked and redefined setting. I really like being able to swipe my hand over the screen to take screenshots. You've got edge panels that put a ton of information to swipe away. What Samsung's done with the software is surprisingly make it more elegant without making it more cumbersome. And as critical as I've been in years past, I think I gotta give credit where credit is due. And if you're like me, you're not sold on Bixby yet, Google Assistant also is shipping with the Galaxy S8. And perhaps the best software feature, and for me, I think a reason to consider the Galaxy S8 or really most modern Samsung phones, is Samsung Pay. So it works like Apple Pay or Android Pay can use NFC payments, but it also will put out a magnetic field for anywhere you would swipe a card, you can hold your phone right next to it. And it works really well, meaning you could pretty much use Samsung Pay anywhere a credit card is accepted. When the S8 was announced, they said it was going to be the same camera sensor as the Note 7 and the S7. I was a little bit disappointed because new phone, I wanted something new just because new. Turns out that was a bit unfounded because the camera in the S8 is still really good. It's a 12 megapixel sensor with some software improvements over last gen, and the shots look awesome. Things do look a little bit overexposed, but they can be tweaked in settings, but I still like the brightness of it. And I wanted to test the camera like I legitimately use a phone every day, so took my kid out to the park. I was able to get pictures of him running, which is really hard to do for fast motion. In normal noontime sunlight, the pictures looked absolutely incredible, and low light also looked really good. The video quality also looks awesome. You can set all the way up to take 4K video. Though you do get, if you don't have a micro SD card, a 10-minute cap on 4K. But here you go. Here's a video of my son going down a slide in 4K. And just as a fun side story, he was terrified to go down that slide like 4 days ago, and he just got super brave and went down. So while the rear camera didn't get much in the way of improvements, the front-facing camera did. It's 8 megapixel, and it now has autofocus, which is something I guess we need now on a front-facing camera. So when you want to take your selfies, it works really well. And also new to the camera, because I guess everybody's taking cues from Snapchat, you've got filters built right in. The camera boils down to this. Samsung's throwing around a ton of marketing talk about their cameras. Things like multi-frame image processing. Pictures look really good, look great in almost any situation. In fact, when compared to things like the Pixel or the iPhone 7 Plus, this stands on its own. If it's not the best phone camera out there, it's certainly in the running and deserves to be in that conversation. The S8's got a 3000 mAh battery, S8 Plus has a 3500. And in my battery test, I was mostly using the S8 Plus. And I was able to get through a full day of testing. And my usage might vary from yours, but I wirelessly charge it overnight, 100% when I wake up around 7:30 in the morning. I am taking a lot of pictures, like ultimate dad at Disneyland number of pictures. I'm watching a ton of YouTube videos, making about an hour and a half, 2 hours of phone calls, playing some games when I probably should be working. And by the end of the day, without changing any settings, my brightness set to about 75%. I usually have about 10 to 15% battery life left. But those figures are only if you don't have any power saving modes on. Samsung offers two different ones. There's a mid and the max, and turning on the mid can turn about 20% of battery life into like 8 to 10 hours. So you can really get through 2 or 3 days if you need. Just be aware those settings are there. Usually my phone reviews have a performance category, but that's almost a moot point now with modern phones. So fast, that's performance. When it comes to intangibles, I had the most fun putting together notes for this part of the review because there's a lot here. Let's start with the big one. IP68, same waterproof-ishness we saw on the S7, the Note 7. You could take it in the shower with you if you're inclined to do so for reasons I'm not going to talk about. Headphone jack, it's here! And it's going to be shipping with $99 equivalent AKG headphones, which I guess to my untrained ear sound like any other earbuds that come bundled with phones. But it's there, and you can plug in your headphones with it, and you don't have to just use Bluetooth. If you couldn't tell, I really like the Galaxy S8, and I asked the question at the beginning, what did I do? Did I buy one? And I did. I caved. I really like the Galaxy S8. I ordered a Galaxy S8 Plus in black. In fact, maybe the only knock I have on the phone, aside from price and the really poor placement of the fingerprint reader, is the colors. I wish the US got the gold and the blue like we had with the last gen phones, but alas, they ain't here. I wasn't a fan of the silver or the gray, so I went fingerprint smudgy black. The phone looks really sleek. I've had it in my own phone now for about 3 days. I don't think I'm looking back. I like the way the phone performs. I like the way it feels. And the best endorsement that I can give for a phone is to actually buy one myself. With my own money behind it and use it as my daily driver. And the Galaxy S8 Plus is going to be the phone that's in my pocket for the foreseeable future. But that's just my opinion. What do you guys think about the Galaxy S8 and the S8 Plus? Is it the phone you've been waiting for? Are you disappointed? Let me know your reasons down below in the comments. Let's legitimately have a discussion about the technology that's in the latest from Samsung. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you like the cinematography, credit goes to Nate. Andrew takes no credit for this one. Please give the video a thumbs up. We certainly appreciate it. Until next time, I'm John Rettinger from Techno Buffalo.